Arthur Peterson, known to his friends as Art, hunched his shoulders against the brutal weight of the blizzard as he trudged across the snow-covered bridge. Icy, sharp needles stung his face, and the wind howled like the earth's lament for something that would never return. 2 years. 2 years had passed since his wife, Eleanor, whom he called Ellie, left. 2 years of waking up in an empty house where her cardigan still hung over the back of the kitchen chair. Only the scent of coldness and loneliness lingered in the air. Art had dedicated most of his 70 years to the National Forest Service. A retired park ranger who had saved countless deer tangled in old fences or given milk to orphaned raccoons. Now, everything felt pointless. He was walking home from the village general store with a small bag of bread and rice. The bus service was suspended in this fury of wind and snow. So walking was his only option. Suddenly, something stopped him dead in his tracks. A dark cardboard box lay discarded on the right side of the road. The snow had already buried half of it, but Art noticed something moving inside. His heart, which had forgotten how to swell with anticipation long ago, tightened. He approached. From the box, he heard a small, desperate, painful cry, like a final plea for help. Art fell to his knees, heedless of the icy snow soaking through his trousers. Inside, there were 4 tiny lives huddled together, 1 vibrant red-furred puppy and 3 kittens, their fur matted with frozen snow. Art's numb fingers cautiously touched the gray kitten. It was colder than the snow. The puppy, with the round, massive head and thick, triangular ears of a young Alaskan Malamute, whimpered weakly. The 2 brown kittens shivered, pressing their bodies against the dog's flank, seeking warmth that was no longer there. "Oh, Lord," the old man whispered, his voice trembling for the first time in 2 years. Who could do such a terrible thing? He quickly untied his worn muffler, wrapped it snugly around them, and tucked them all securely beneath his padded canvas coat. Against his chest, he could feel the weak but frantic beating of their little hearts through the cloth. The bag of groceries he had just bought was abandoned on the roadside. It didn't matter anymore. Art stood up and ran toward his house as fast as his aging legs could carry him. The blizzard intensified, visibility dropped to a few yards. But the old man kept moving, shielding his precious cargo with his own body. Every step was heavy, his heart hammered, a pain shot through his side, and he was gasping for air. But he did not stop. For the first time in 2 years, someone needed him. For the first time, his existence had a purpose. The house greeted him with darkness and cold. The wood stove had long been extinguished. Art, still wearing his coat, frantically set about building a fire. His hands were shaking. He didn't know if it was from the cold or from the surge of emotion. He threw all the dry pine and kindling into the stove. As the first flames began to lick the wood, he cautiously retrieved the little lives from his coat and placed them on an old blanket in front of the stove. The puppy was no bigger than the palm of his hand. Thick red fur, white on his face and chest, a massive round head, and sturdy, thick paws. An Alaskan Malamute, Art realized. He had seen them on TV, a famous, powerful breed of sled dog. The 3 kittens were also special. Large paws, tufts of hair at the tips of their ears, and long, thick tails. Art remembered seeing them in a veterinary magazine, Maine Coons, an expensive breed. The gray kitten was completely still. Art took it in his hand and gently began to massage it with a soft cloth. It was a tiny, fragile life. Memories flooded him. Saving a bird with a broken wing. Feeding milk to a squirrel whose mother had been killed by a trapper. Back then, Ellie would laugh and call him Dr. Doolittle. "Dear God, how much time has passed?" he pleaded, speaking to the kitten. "Live, can you hear me? Live." He breathed warm air onto the chilled little paws and continued to rub its sides. Minutes felt like hours. Then, there was a faint spasm, and a tiny cry escaped its lips. The kitten opened its eyes. They were large and blue, like a summer sky. Art's chest tightened, and his vision blurred with tears. The other animals began to warm up as well. The puppy cried out the loudest, demanding attention. The 2 brown kittens stirred, trying to stand on weak legs. Art warmed some milk, diluted it with water, and fed each one with a dropper. The puppy devoured the liquid. the milk spilling down its white muzzle. The kittens were wary but eventually began to drink. When Art finally leaned back in his chair, the wall clock showed 11 p.m. The children were asleep in a box lined with old clothes belonging to Eleanor. The wood stove crackled, radiating warmth throughout the house. For the first time in 2 years, the house felt truly warm. For the first time in 2 years, he felt useful. The night was spent in anxiety. Art woke up every hour to check on them. The gray kitten was the weakest. It barely moved, its breathing shallow. The old man placed it inside his shirt, pressed against his own heart for warmth. He kept whispering words. He didn't know if they were prayers or pleas. With the dawn, the gray kitten opened its eyes and let out a mournful, small meow. Art cried. Tears streamed down his bearded cheeks and fell onto the soft fur. He laughed while he cried. A stupid, very human joy filled him completely. The following days were busy. Art fed them every 3 hours. Even during the night, he boiled water, changed the bedding, and kept vigil day and night. His neighbor, Brenda Miller, heard the story and brought an old hot water bottle and a tin of kitten milk she had bought in town. Look at those kids, Art, she said, watching the struggling little ones. You've come back to life. You've been walking around like a ghost for 2 years. But now the light is back in your eyes. Art simply nodded. He didn't need to say anything, she was right. The puppy grew the fastest. After a week, its thick, sturdy legs were carrying it all over the house, chewing on anything it could find, and replacing the frantic yelps with a low, throaty rumble. Because of its size and small but distinct majesty, Art named him Coda, Rye. The 2 brown kittens, a male and a female, were named Ember, Sway Kun, and Spark, Hua Wa, and the weakest but most affectionate gray cat was named Smokey, Yan. Smokey was the most attached to Art. He purred on his chest like an engine and followed him everywhere like a small dog. When the old man sat in his armchair, the kitten would climb onto his lap and gaze up at him with large eyes, filled with an intensity of devotion and love that made Art's heart ache. A month passed. The kids had turned into sturdy, high-spirited, curious little creatures. Coda weighed about 10 pounds. His paws were huge, and his tail was beginning to curl over his back in a circle. His thick ears were standing up. The kittens had doubled in size. Their fur was thick and luxurious. Smokey was still the smallest but the smartest. He was the first to learn how to open the cupboard and jump onto the table. Once, Art even found him on the roof of the shed. Art was renewed. The neighbors saw a different man. He laughed and cracked jokes again. His eyes sparkled. The house was filled with life, laughter, and joy. The mornings began with the sound of them begging for food, and the nights ended with all 4 sleeping next to him. Coda on the rug next to the bed like a guard. The cats on the comforter. In the dark of the night, Art whispered, "See, Ellie, they saved me. I thought my life was over. But they gave me life back." The disaster arrived on a bright, sunny day in February, when the snow reflected the dazzling sun. Art was out in the yard splitting firewood. Coda was running around, carrying a piece of wood and dragging it across the snow. The cats were sunbathing on the porch. Smokey was curled up like a ball, purring, while Ember and Spark chased the snowflakes dancing in the wind. A black, luxury SUV, a rare sight in this village, slid to a stop in front of the house. Out stepped a man in his mid-40s, wearing an expensive down jacket and polished boots. He had a well-groomed face, but his eyes were cold and searching. He scanned the yard, his gaze stopping at the animals, and a glint of greed appeared in his eyes. "Hello," the man said, approaching. "Are you Arthur Peterson?" "I am," the old man replied guardedly, setting down his axe. Coda ran to his side, standing next to him, glaring at the stranger. The dog sensed the threat. The fur on his neck stood up, and a low, menacing growl rumbled in his throat. "My name is Marcus Vance," the man stated. "I'm here regarding the animals you picked up on the highway a month and a half ago." Art's heart pounded. He knew this day might come, but he had prayed it wouldn't. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice strained. Marcus lit a cigarette without asking permission. "My brother, John Vance, was a breeder. He had an accident on that road a month ago. He was transporting an Alaskan Malamute and 3 Maine Coons for a show. They are extremely valuable animals. Championship bloodlines. With papers. The animals weren't found after the accident. The box must have been thrown out of the vehicle. And now I know they're here. How do you know? Art felt a chill run down his spine. This village is not very secretive. Mr. Peterson, the neighbor of your neighbor, works at the gas station where I was asking around. They told me about an old man with rare animals. Marcus dropped his cigarette ash on the snow. Let me be direct. I'm taking them. They are the property of my deceased brother's wife. I have the papers. No, Art said flatly. Marcus raised an eyebrow in surprise. What did you say? I won't hand them over to you. They were dying in that box. I saved them, raised them, and brought them back to life. Smokey was hovering between life and death for 3 days. They are my family now. Legally, they belong to Mari Vance, my brother's widow. Marcus's voice hardened. I have the right to reclaim them. I have my brother's death certificate and the animal's papers. What do you have? Nothing. Art fell silent. Coda lowered his posture and growled. Though just a puppy, he exuded an aura that made anyone fear him. Smokey leapt off the porch and hid behind Art's legs. Ember and Spark were also on high alert. Do you even know how much these things are worth? Marcus said slowly, as if talking to a child. That purebred Alaskan Malamute is at least $3,000. The Maine Coons are $1,000 each. That's over $6,000 in value. I already have a buyer overseas. You're going to sell them? Art clenched his fists. To give the money to the widow. Mari is struggling since her husband's death. She needs money more than animals. Marcus threw his cigarette butt onto the snow. Don't cause trouble, old man. Hand them over quietly. No. If the rightful owner comes here herself and says she wants them back. That's a different story, but I won't give them to you. Marcus's face darkened. You're making a mistake. I can call the police. This is theft. Go ahead and call them. Art straightened his back. At 70, his back ached, and his hands trembled, but in that moment, he stood unshaken. I found these animals on the road, freezing to death. There were no papers. I saved them. The law says if the owner doesn't appear within 6 months, they become the finder's property. Well, the owner's side has appeared. Marcus snarled. I'm the owner's brother. Bring the widow. I want to hear it from her. Marcus took a step forward. Coda instantly positioned himself between him and Art, showing his small but sharp fangs. The growl intensified. The cats also puffed up their fur, hissing a warning. You'll regret this, Marcus said coldly, turning his back toward the car. I'll be back with the police and the papers. The car sped away, leaving a nasty smell of exhaust. Art sank down onto the log pile, feeling the strength drain from his limbs. Coda rested his head on his lap, looking up at him with deep eyes. Smokey jumped onto his shoulder, rubbing his head against his cheek and purring. What do we do? The old man whispered. What are we going to do? That night, Brenda Miller visited. The village rumors traveled faster than the wind. Art, what have you done? That Marcus guy is bad news. He's got money and connections. He could ruin your life. I can't give them up. Brenda, Art said, seated in his chair. Smokey was on his chest. Coda at his feet. The 2 brown cats were curled up on his lap. You understand, don't you? I saved them. Smokey almost died the first night. I warmed him, breathed into him, and prayed. How can I give them to someone who intends to sell them like cattle? Brenda sighed and sat down across from him. Tell me about that first night. Art, I know you saved them, but I haven't heard the full story. Art closed his eyes. The memory returned with suffocating clarity. I was coming back from the store, in the middle of the blizzard. For 2 years, I've walked that road like a dead man. You know, since Ellie died, I've only existed, waking up because I had to, eating because I had to. I wasn't living. There was just air. He stroked Smokey. The cat purred loudly. And then I saw that box. I was going to walk past it, but something stopped me. It felt like Ellie tugging at my sleeve. I approached, and they were there, freezing to death. Smokey wasn't moving at all. When I picked him up, he was like ice. I thought it was too late. Brenda dabbed at her eyes. But you didn't give up. I couldn't. For the first time in 2 years. Someone needed me, don't you see? These lives needed me to live. Not for fixing a fence or buying bread. They needed me to survive. He opened his eyes. In the sudden intensity of his gaze, Brenda understood that his resolve was unshakable. I brought them home and made a fire. Thinking it might be the last thing I'd ever do. I burned every piece of kindling I had. And then I started warming them. Massaging them. Breathing into them. Keeping them inside my coat. Coda was the first to open his eyes. He didn't bark. Just nudged his wet nose against my neck. Ember and Spark woke up, too. But Smokey. His voice cracked. Smokey didn't move until morning. I held him all night. Sharing my body heat. Talking to him. Begging him to live. I promised to take care of him. I promised I'd never abandon him. And he lived. He opened his eyes at dawn and cried a little. Weak cry. I cried, too. Brenda. The first tears I'd shed in 2 years. And they weren't tears of grief. But of joy. Brenda stood up and put her arm around his shoulder. I understand, Art. I understand completely. But what will you do if Marcus brings the police? I don't know, Art replied. But I won't hand them over easily. They'll have to walk over my dead body. The next few days were spent in uneasy anticipation. Art barely left the house. Afraid Marcus would take them while he was gone. Neighbors helped out, bringing food, splitting firewood, or just stopping by to offer encouragement. Coda grew at an astonishing rate. In 3 months, he weighed 35 pounds. Huge paws, erect ears, a proudly curled tail, and eyes that viewed the world with a keen, almost human intelligence. He sensed his master's unease and never left his side. At night, he was next to the bed. During the day, he trotted right on Art's heels. The cats were magnificent. Ember was the largest, with a flaming red coat and an impressive ruff and tail. Spark was smaller, sleek, but equally beautiful, and Smokey was still the smallest but the wisest. He learned to unlock cupboard doors and jump onto the highest shelves. Art once found him on the barn roof. The old man knew that every day with them was a gift. Looking at them, he couldn't believe that just 2 months ago, he was planning to die. Now, life had meaning. In the dark, he whispered, "You sent them, didn't you, Ellie? You knew I couldn't bear it alone. Thank you, my love, thank you." A week after Marcus's visit, Deputy Ben Clark, the local police officer, came to Art's house. They had known each other for years. Art, he began uncomfortably, "I've received a complaint. Marcus Vance is requesting the return of the animals." "By what right?" Art asked quietly. "As a relative of the deceased owner. He has the papers. The animals were his brother's. But his brother is dead. The rightful heir is the widow. If she comes and says she wants them back, I'll hand them over. But I won't hand them over to Marcus. He intends to sell them." Ben sighed. "I understand, Art. But the law is the law. These are purebred animals with papers. They're property." "They're not property," Art said fiercely. "They're lives. I found them freezing to death. I saved them. The law says if the owner doesn't appear for 6 months, they belong to the finder. But the owner's side has appeared. Not the owner. The brother who wants to sell them off." Art stood up. Coda immediately stood by his side, almost like a bear standing guard. "Ben, you're a father. You have 2 kids. How would you feel if someone told you to hand over your children to a stranger who intends to sell them?" The officer remained silent. "I won't hand them over," Art continued. "Bring the widow. Let her tell me herself, looking me in the eye. But I will never give them to Marcus." Ben said he would relay the message and left. Art knew it wasn't over. Marcus wouldn't give up, but he wouldn't back down either. That night, he dreamed of Ellie. She was wearing her favorite white dress and standing in the yard. She smiled. "Don't be afraid," she said. "You are doing the right thing. Protect them. They're yours now." Art woke up in tears. Smokey was asleep on his chest. Coda was snoring next to the bed. And Ember and Spark were curled up at his feet. His family. His salvation. "I won't let you go," he whispered. "To anyone. Ever." 3 days later, Marcus returned. This time, he was not alone. A woman in her mid-30s was with him. She was thin, pale, and her eyes were red from crying. This was Mari Vance, John's widow. Art stepped onto the porch. Coda stood beside him, tense and ready to defend. The cats peered out from the doorway. Only Smokey stayed close to Art's feet. "Hello," Mari said in a small voice. "I'm Mari Vance. I hear you have my husband's animals." Her voice trembled, and Art saw genuine sadness in her eyes. There was no greed or cruelty like in Marcus's eyes. Only deep grief. "Please, come inside," he said, opening the door. "Let's talk over some tea." Marcus snorted but remained silent. They entered the house. Art boiled water and set out cups. Mari sat at the table, her eyes fixed on the animals. Coda sniffed her but kept his distance. The cats hid under the stove. Only Smokey remained near Art, settling on his knee. "Can you tell me how you found them?" Mari asked. Art spoke of the blizzard, the box on the side of the road, their near-death state, Smokey's 3 days of hovering between life and death, the weeks of sleepless nights, feeding them every 3 hours. Mari listened, tears running down her cheeks. John loved these animals, she whispered. Coda was supposed to be a champion. The cats are descendants of the cat he loved most, who died last winter. He was on his way to a show. The truck hydroplaned into oncoming traffic. She broke down, covering her face. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder, but there was no sympathy in his eyes, only irritation. "Mary's been through a lot. John was the breadwinner. All she has left is debt and rent. These animals are her last chance to make things better. I have a buyer willing to pay a high price." "Stop it, Marcus," Mari said sharply, suddenly looking up at him. "Don't say another word. I didn't come here for that." She turned back to Art. "Can I look at them up close?" Art nodded. Mari slowly sat down on the floor. Ember was the first to emerge from under the stove. Sniffing cautiously, Mari held out her hand, and the cat sniffed her fingers. Then Spark came out. Finally, Coda walked up and rested his head on her knee. "Oh, my God," Mari whispered, stroking his head. "You've grown so big. John dreamed of this boy becoming a champion." Smokey was still on Art's lap, gripping his sweater with his claws. The old man felt the small body trembling. "Smokey," Art called gently, "say hello," but the kitten only clung to him tighter. Mari looked up at him, smiling through her tears. "He loves you, I can see it." "He was the weakest," Art said. "I held him for 3 days, pulling him back from the hand of death. That's why he's so attached to me." Mari stroked Coda, Ember, and Spark. The animals accepted her touch. But Art knew, they weren't happy. It wasn't like when they were with him. Coda wasn't wagging his tail, and the cats weren't purring. They were just polite and guarded, like with any harmless stranger. "Mari, enough with the melodrama," Marcus said, losing his patience. "We're not here for a visit. These are high-value breeding stock. We're taking them before this old man can do any more damage." "He already did damage," Art said quietly. He transferred his warmth to them. "They're just animals," Marcus dismissed coldly. "They'll get used to a new owner quickly. Mari needs the money now." Mari stood up from the floor. Her face was pale, but filled with determination. "Marcus, I'm not selling them." "What?" Marcus jumped up. "What are you saying? It's $6,000. John would never sell them. He loved them. I can't sell his last legacy like market commodities." "So you'll buy them, then? Your apartment is on the 3rd floor with no elevator. You work 12 hours a day. Who will take care of them?" Mari looked at Art again. "Here, there is a home, there is warmth, and there is love. There is a man who would lay down his life for them." "I see that." Art was silent. His throat was choked. Smokey was purring on his chest. Coda rested his head on his knee. Ember and Spark rubbed against his hand. His family, his salvation. "Will you buy them, Mr. Peterson?" Mari asked. Art swallowed. "I can't imagine life without them anymore." Mari smiled. It was the first sincere smile since she arrived. "Then they are yours. I will get the papers and transfer the ownership. Please make them happy. That will be the greatest tribute to John." "You're making a huge mistake." Marcus grabbed her arm. "Wake up. It's money. Big money." Mari pulled her hand away. "Marcus, you are making a mistake. You thought I was as greedy as you are. There's a reason John hated you. I finally understand it now. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. At the threshold, she turned back. Thank you, Mr. Peterson, for saving them, for loving them. I think John would be happy that they are with someone like you. Mari left. Marcus stood there, his face red with anger. His fists clenched. You'll regret this. He snarled at Art through his teeth. Both of you will regret it. He stormed out after Mari. A minute later, the SUV roared and sped away, disappearing around the corner. Art sat there, holding the animals tightly. His hands were shaking with relief, joy, and the lingering fear. Coda whined and licked his cheek. Smokey purred loudly. Ember and Spark huddled on his shoulder. We made it, the old man whispered. You stayed with me. The calamity struck on a pitch-black night in March, just as the earth was finally reclaiming the land from winter. Art woke up to Coda's low growl. The dog was standing by the window, fur raised, fangs bared. The clock showed 3 a.m. Art got up, his heart pounding with anxiety. The cats were also awake. Smokey jumped onto the window sill. Ember and Spark stayed still, ears flat against their heads. He heard human movements in the yard. Art peeked out the window, and his blood ran cold. 3 dark figures were approaching the house. The leader was Marcus, followed by 2 large men. One of them held a steel cage. Stubborn old fool. Marcus's voice drifted in. The animals are inside. Do it quickly and quietly. I don't want a scene. What if the old man resists? One of the men asked. Just scare him a little. He's 70. He'll pee his pants. Art backed away. His hands were shaking violently. What could he do? There was no phone. The nearest neighbor was 200 yards away. He couldn't run in time. Leaving the animals would be the same as handing them over to Marcus. The door was violently slammed, rattling the frame. Open up, old man, Marcus yelled. We've come for what's ours. Go away, Art shouted, leaning his back against the door. I'll call the police. Call who? You don't have a phone. Marcus let out a mocking laugh. We checked. You live alone here. No one will hear you. No one will come to help. The pounding intensified. The door groaned. The old lock wouldn't last long. Coda charged toward the door, but he did not bark. Alaskan Malamutes are silent warriors. He planted his feet wide, lowered his head, and let out a growl that thrummed like distant thunder. It was not a warning, it was a promise of death. The 4-month-old puppy had transformed into a guardian. He's got a dog, one of the men exclaimed. Surprised. You didn't say he had a dog. It's just a puppy. Marcus waved his hand. Only 4 months old. Scare him, and he'll run. Another heavy impact. The lock started to splinter from the frame. Art knew the door would break in another minute. He grabbed the old hunting rifle hanging on the wall. It hadn't been fired in years, and he didn't know if it was loaded. I have a gun, he shouted. If you come in, I'll shoot. Marcus scoffed. A hunter? An old, dusty war gun. Don't be afraid, it's not loaded. He was right. There were no bullets, but Art gripped the rifle tightly. He would use it as a club if he had to. With a final, shattering sound, the door burst open. Marcus stood in the doorway. The 2 large men behind him. A flame of malice danced in Marcus's eyes. Talk is over, he sneered. Now, hand over the animals. Since you wouldn't listen nicely, you'll have to suffer a little pain. Coda stood between Art and the intruders. His growl now roared like thunder right next to their ears. The raised fur made him look twice his size. His exposed fangs flashed white. He was no longer a dog but a bear, fiercely protecting its territory. Brat, the man with the stun gun snarled. Let's put him to sleep. Don't touch that boy, Art yelled, stepping forward. The man shoved him hard. Art, old and frail, fell, his back hitting the doorframe. A searing pain shot through his spine, and the rifle slipped from his grasp. That's when Coda attacked. There was no bark, only a powerful leap. The Alaskan Malamute launched himself like a golden arrow. Sharp fangs sunk deep into the arm of the man holding the stun gun. The man screamed, trying to shake the dog off. But Coda bit down like a vice, his bear dog instincts exploding. The stun gun fell to the floor. "Damn it," the other man shouted, trying to help his companion. But instantly, the cats screeched and leapt onto him. Ember and Spark, abnormally large and strong for their age, clung to his legs. Their claws tore his trousers, and their sharp teeth penetrated the fabric. The smallest, Smokey, leapt from the high shelf onto the man's back, clinging to his neck. The man screamed, struggling to shake off the furious little monsters. "You little pests," Marcus yelled, trying to grab Coda's scruff to help his accomplice. But then, a sight occurred that Art would never forget. Coda released the man's arm, quickly spun around, and confronted Marcus. There was no animal fear or blind rage in the dog's eyes. There was a rational, ferocious anger. He knew this was the leader, the greatest threat to his family. Coda let out a primal, spine-chilling growl and lunged. Marcus stumbled and fell backward, and Coda stood over his chest, his fangs at his throat. He did not bite, he just stood there, growling, pinning him to the floor like a sentry, waiting for his master's command. Smokey jumped off the man's back and ran to Art. The kitten rubbed his head against the old man's hand, letting out a mournful cry, as if asking if he was okay. Ember and Spark backed away, flanking Art. The old man struggled to his feet, ignoring the pain. His back hurt, his vision swam, but he stood firm. He walked over to Marcus, who was lying under Coda's feet. "Get this dog off me," Marcus whimpered. "Old man, get him off." Art looked down at him silently. There was contempt, pain, and a profound disappointment in humanity in his eyes. "You tried to take my family," he said quietly. "The only thing I have left. The only thing that keeps me alive." Marcus tried to move, and Coda's warning growl instantly stopped him, freezing him in place. "They're just animals." Art shook his head. "No, they are more than that. They are redemption. They are love, something you will never understand in your life." He looked at Coda. The dog waited patiently for the command. There was understanding in his gaze. It was as if the 4-month-old puppy fully grasped the situation, knowing who was the enemy and who was the friend. "Coda," Art called, "come here." The dog backed away, but didn't go far, standing right next to his master, still growling and staring at Marcus. The two men retreated toward the door, holding their bitten and scratched arms and legs. "I didn't get paid for this," one muttered. "They said it was a harmless old man. This is a house of monsters." "Get out," Art said, "all three of you, and never come back." Marcus got up slowly, clutching his neck. The color had drained from his face. His eyes were a mixture of fear and hatred. "You'll regret this." He squeezed out the words. "I will have them, legally or not. I will take them." "No, you won't take anything," a voice echoed from the doorway. Everyone turned around. Standing outside the door was Mari, along with Deputy Ben Clark and 2 other officers. "Mari," Marcus was pale. "What?" "I called the police," she said calmly. "I didn't go home that day. I had a feeling you were planning something." "I was right, wasn't I?" Deputy Clark stepped inside the house. "Breaking and entering, assault, attempted grand theft. Marcus Vance, you're under arrest." "Theft?" Marcus shouted. "These are Mary's animals. I have the right." "No." Mari pulled a sheaf of papers from her bag. "These are Art Peterson's pets. I transferred the ownership 3 days ago. He is the legal owner. And you, Marcus, are just a thief." The officers handcuffed Marcus. The accomplices outside were also secured. Deputy Clark came to Art. "Are you okay, Art? Should I call an ambulance?" "I'm fine, Ben." The old man slumped into the chair. The adrenaline was wearing off, and exhaustion was setting in. "Thank you for coming." "Thank Mari." She said Marcus wouldn't give up and asked me to watch the house. Mari sat next to Art. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. He's my brother-in-law, and I should have known what kind of person he was." "It's not your fault." Art put his hand on her shoulder. "You saved us today." Mari looked at the animals. Coda stood next to Art, his big head resting on his knees. The 3 cats were clinging to the old man's body, Smokey on his shoulder, Ember and Spark on his lap. All 4 were looking at the old man with loyalty, devotion, and absolute love. "You know," she said quietly. John always said that animals can sense the human heart. They repay kindness with kindness and evil with justice. I witnessed that firsthand today. Art stroked Coda's head. The Alaskan Malamute looked at him, and his eyes said it all. Coda remembered. The blizzard, the box, the moment of imminent death, the warmth shared that first night, the sleepless nights, the food, the gentleness, the care. And today, when danger came, Coda didn't fear or flee. He protected. He didn't just protect his master, he protected the father who gave him life. Thank you, kids, Art whispered, tears welling up again. Thank you, all of you. Smokey purred louder, rubbing his head against his cheek. Ember and Spark kneaded their paws on his lap. Coda licked his hand. After the police took Marcus and the men away, after Maury promised to visit again and left, and after Deputy Clark finished taking the statement and departed, Art was alone with his animals. He sat in his old chair, hugging all four of them. His back ached, and his body felt broken, but his heart was warm and bright. I thought I saved you in that blizzard, he said aloud. I thought I gave you life, but it was the other way around. Coda rested his head on his knee, and Smokey nestled on his chest. Ember and Spark curled up in his arms. You saved me, he said. For 2 years, I was a dead man. I walked and breathed, but I wasn't living. You gave me life back. You gave me meaning. You gave me love. He closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of the fur, listening to the purring of the cats and the deep breathing of the dog. And today, you protected me. You didn't run. You didn't hide. You protected me the way a family protects its own. The way children protect their father. His voice trembled. Thank you. For everything. For staying. For loving me. Outside the window, dawn was breaking. A new day was beginning. A day where Art Peterson was no longer alone. A day where he had a completely devoted, loving family. Not by blood, but by a bond that was greater than any blood tie. Because family is not about blood. Family is about who is there for you in your struggles. Who protects you, and who loves you simply because you are you. And the 4 lives rescued from a box on a snowy night proved it more eloquently than any words. 41.4s